Hi, and welcome back to the Shades of Magic Readalong. It's week 3, and we are going to be covering parts 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. We are basically going to be going to the end of the book. That's all you need to know. Yep, it is 14 parts. Okay. There are a different number of parts in every book. I don't keep track of the number of parts. I keep track of the story. Now, where we left off, just a quick little recap, is that Kell and Lila Bard are in Red London. They have gone to Kell's bolt hole to hopefully get a token to take them to White London. Unfortunately, they arrived there to find the place burned down and Holland hot on their heels. They were able to hide themselves, but now they have to go find a White London token, and they are going to head to a man named Fletcher, who runs kind of a little bit of a seedy shop. So, we open part 10, though, somewhere else, or with someone else. We have been tracking kind of a possessed piece of black magic that has been slowly moving from person to person, and now we are tracking the piece that was in Grey London, in the ordinary London. And essentially, it's falling apart. It is inside of a human. That human is dead, and its body is not holding up very well, and it's struggling to spread through Grey London, and before it can spread through Grey London, it is hit by a passing horse and cart, and turns to ash. This act is witnessed by Ned Tuttle, remember him? He is the one that I thought was only going to be on a page, but I really liked him. Ned Tuttle is currently hanging out around the Stone's Throw, which has just been relieved of its owner, Baron, because he died. And Ned is daydreaming about being visited by Kelmaresh, who he thinks is going to teach him magic, and then they're going to become best friends. Anyway, and he witnesses this carriage accident happen, this horse and cart accident happen, and is like, oh shit, did anyone see that guy get hit by that cart? And they all rush to investigate, and there is no body, because it has dissolved into ash. That's really all we need to know. On to chapter 2. So we have Lila and Kell heading to Fletcher's shop. We are witnessing that there are now missing signs for Kell going up around the city. He's been gone from the palace for more than a day now, and they are understandably concerned. Kell is using the Blackstone and its magic to conceal them as they head to Fletcher's shop, but we're noticing that it's starting to have an effect on him. It's starting to poison him a little physically and mentally, and he needs to set it down. And so Lila agrees to hold on to it. And Kell doesn't really want her to, but she's like, I'm a better option than you at this point. It is clearly messing with you. So they get to the shop, and something really important happens in there while they're looking for Fletcher and the object, which is that Kell and Lila start bonding a little bit, start talking a little bit, and Kell tells Lila the story of the first time he ever killed somebody. Of course, this is Lila's version of small talk, asking how that happened. Hello, are you going to help? And Kell basically tells Lila that when Rye, the prince, was younger, he was kidnapped by essentially a group of domestic terrorists kidnapped him and were going to kill him. And Kell was able to find Rye, but he was mortally wounded. He was essentially unresponsive. And Kell cut himself and used healing magic, and it didn't seem to work. And he kept cutting himself more and more and giving up more of his blood. He basically slit his wrists in the end and didn't realize, because he was also young, he was only 13, 14, and didn't realize that healing magic simply takes time. So Rye was revived, Rye was healed, and Kell made an incredible sacrifice to do that. And that's the origin of why Rye is so sensitive about Kell putting himself in harm's way on his behalf or causing himself pain on his behalf. This is going to be important. But anyway, the moral of this story, the part that Lila is interested in, is that Rye pardoned all of those domestic terrorists. He let them live, and Kell disagreed with that, and so he went back afterwards and he killed them all. And it is the first taking of a life that he ever did when he was young. So basically, Rye forgave them, but Kell didn't, and he went back and he killed them all, not out of a sense of vengeance even, but a desperate need to make sure that it didn't happen to Rye again, that they didn't continue to pose a threat. And we also learn exactly what they're looking for in the shop. Kell tells Lila that the White London token that they're looking for is a chess piece, a white rook. So, back in Fletcher's shop, Lila is looking at a map of the world around Red London, and we actually learn that the world around Red London does not have a red Paris and a red Venice and other things, that London is a little bit of a linguistic anomaly, that there's a city in this place in every world, but none of them can agree which one called it London first. So there are empires around Red London. Red London is actually the capital of Arns. And Arns is one of the empires. Vesk is one of the empires. Pharaoh is one of the empires. This will be important in later books, but just know that Lila is learning this along the way. Lila also discovers her favorite knife, which is this one right here. It's a knife that you can both punch somebody with or stab somebody with. She's only sad that you can't do both at the same time. Lila makes a very famous comment to Kel about some people stealing to stay alive and some people stealing to feel alive, and distinguishes that that's the difference between the two of them. So Fletcher arrives in the shop. By the way, Fletcher and Kel do not like each other. They had kind of a falling out. They worked together to smuggle items, it turns out, that he was kind of Kel's fence in Red London, but it didn't end well. They're not on good terms, and so it's not terribly surprising that, you remember those missing signs for people looking for Kel? It also had a reward, and Fletcher has in fact informed the Royal Guard that he has located Kel. So Kel and Lila looking around the shop, Fletcher arrives, and so do all of the Royal Guards. So the Royal Guards arrive, Lila hides herself using the stone's magic, which she's carrying now. Kel doesn't. He has a scene with the guards, who obviously know him because he's the prince, and he agrees to go with them and gets into a carriage. As soon as he's in that carriage, though, they knock him unconscious. So that's not great for him. Meanwhile, Lila has stayed behind in Fletcher's shop and witnesses the guards, who seem to be under some kind of compulsion or spell, kill Fletcher. And just so happens that she searches his dead body and finds the White Rook. And then she goes to figure out how she's going to save Kel from whatever mess he's gotten himself into now. We have a very quick moment where, again, we are tracking the spread of black magic through Red London, and so we are with Rye's two Royal Guards, who we met in the very, very beginning, Jen and Parrish, and essentially one kills the other because one of them accepts this dark magic into himself and the other one resists it and is cut down. Again, what you really need to know is that that magic is really starting to pick up speed as it spreads through Red London. So we have, at the end of part 10, magic is spreading, bad magic is spreading. Kel has been knocked unconscious by guards, which seems pretty weird considering he's a member of the royal family, and Lila Bard has the White London token, but she doesn't have Kel. Part 11, Masquerade. So, Lila heads for the palace, and she sees that there seems to be a masquerade ball that's kicking off. This is Rye's birthday party. Remember in the beginning, Rye was like, I should have a birth week, not a birthday, and he was thinking about how he wanted to celebrate. Well, this is his celebration for Rye's 20th birthday, and she lifts an invitation from some girls on their way in, but she needs some kind of costume. She can't go the way she is. She's not going to be able to blend in, especially if she doesn't have a mask. So she heads for the night market, which is a location that I don't feel I've talked much about in this read-along, but if you are reading the book along the way, you know it's kind of a very important location where our characters are going to come back to again and again. It's one of the places that Kel moves through on his first day that we see him coming back to Red London. It's one of the places that Lila moves through. It's a marketplace. And despite its name, it's open during the day, but it really comes to life at night. And in this market, she finds a tailor's stall, and we meet Calla. And Calla is very small in this book, but she's going to get bigger, like so many of them as the series go on. She's essentially a woman who is going to become very invested in shipping Kel and Lila before we even ship Kel and Lila. She wants to see the two of them together. She has seen Lila earlier that day in Red London when she was trying to steal something from the marketplace with Kel. She has decided that Lila and Kel are an item and that she's going to help Lila get ready for this ball. She is our little fairy godmother in this moment. She is making assumptions about the nature of their relationship. She starts showing Lila dresses, thinking she's going to find the perfect dress, and Lila picks out for herself a very elegant black coat and a horned black mask. This is going to become her signature visual, and she decides this for herself. Cal is a little disappointed because she really wanted to put her in a fancy dress. We'll get to that in book 2, but in this book, she's going to dress in this fabulous black coat, and she's going to go save Kel from whatever danger he's gotten into. And with that, we cut to Kel. So Kel wakes up in Rye's bedroom, handcuffed, lying on a sofa. And Rye is sitting there, obviously waiting for him to regain consciousness, looking fabulous because it's his party, but obviously very annoyed that Kel has come to him by this means. Kel is, of course, immediately like, why am I handcuffed? Please let me go. And Rye is like, I don't think so. And this scene becomes more and more suspicious. Rye is acting odd. And what we soon discover is that it's not Rye. It is Aster Dayton, the Queen of White London, who is possessing Rye. And when we encountered Astrid Dane in White London in the beginning, she was wearing a red amulet necklace. Rye is now wearing that red amulet necklace, and we're going to discover it's what Holland gave him in their secret meeting in the first section. So anyway, we now have a problem because Astrid Dane is wearing Rye Maresh's body, and Astrid wants the stone. And Kel's like, you can't have the stone, and Astrid sets about torturing Kel. And Kel, I have a note in here that just says he's having a pretty bad day, which feels a little bit like an understatement at this moment, but yes, Kel is having a really bad day, and it is about to get worse. As he's being tortured by Astrid Dane, wearing his beloved brother's skin, again, bad day, Lila enters the palace and marvels, of course, she's seeing all of this for the very first time, marvels at the scope of it, and she meets the king and queen. And they're acting very odd. And it's becoming very clear that they're under a spell as well. More and more people we meet seem to be under some kind of compulsion spell, which, as we know, is Astrid and Athos Dane's kind of thing that they like to do. So the king and queen, not acting normal, and Lila realizes she really needs to go and find Kel. We return to Kel, again, being tortured by Astrid, and we learn in this scene the motivation for why this is happening. Essentially, one of the things about the Black Stone is that it has a jagged edge, almost like it has been broken in two. And we learn that's because it has, in fact, been broken in two, and that the other side of that stone is still in White London. That the idea is that by having one piece in one London and one piece in another, and these pieces are calling to each other, and they're incredible sources of magic, that the Dane twins are going to use the two pieces to tear down the wall between worlds. Because they kind of got the shit end of the bargain when those walls went up, and they were the closest thing to Black London, and they believe that this is going to be a righting of the world. Now, they did it this way, and they used Kel to transport that half of the stone instead of Holland in case things went wrong. Kel has a reputation as a smuggler. They would have plausible deniability. What matters most is that Astrid is here in Red London, in Rye's body, and that their plan is to essentially tear down the walls between worlds and take over Red London as they do it. That's not great. Kel is being tortured, and then Lila arrives, and we're like, woohoo! Lila arrives in the window. She has exited one room and climbed up into another room, and then Astrid promptly shoves her back out that window. And we're like, oh shit! Lila can't fly, but Lila has the Black Stone, and she uses this to kind of save herself, re-enters the room, and Astrid Dane's like, there's the Black Stone. This is what she's been looking for. Lila has, of course, brought it straight to the place she shouldn't have, through no fault of her own. Astrid then takes her own knife and puts it on Rye's heart. Remember, she's wearing Rye's body. And she's like, great, give me the stone or I will kill the prince. And Lila's like, you're bluffing. And she's like, I am definitely not bluffing. And then this all happens very, very fast, but I'm going to try and make it very, very clear for those of you who are not reading along. Astrid uses one hand to rip off her possession charm and toss it to a guard who is also possessed. Everyone around them is possessed and under her control at this point. And with the other hand, she drives the knife into Rye's chest. So she is no longer in Rye's body. Rye collapses to the floor. Astrid is in a guard's body and takes off. Whew, things are not gonna go well for Rye now. So Astrid body jumps away and away and away, kind of uses this to hop out of the scene. Okay, we don't need to worry about Astrid right now. We need to worry about Rye Maresh. I wish you could see my cat, Chauncey, who is on the floor because he's basically doing an impression of Rye Maresh right now, splayed on the ground, minus the blood. Anyway, Rye is dying. This is clearly a mortal wound, and Kel cannot seem to heal him. Whatever Astrid has done, healing magic is not working. Remember, we have just learned all of his trauma about healing magic from his childhood, and it's not working, and they have to take him somewhere, and nowhere in the palace is safe now because everywhere is compelled, and Kel says we have to take him to the sanctuary. Part 12, sanctuary and sacrifice. This is a very ominous sounding part. So, the sanctuary is where the priests of Red London are, and the priests are what they sound like. They are the arbiters of magic. They worship magic. The high priest, Tyrion, who is going to be, as many of you know, a very important figure in the series, is the Avenessen, the head of the sanctuary. And it's also a place where Kel was taught growing up, a place that helped him hone his magic. So he knows that it's a place of safety and protection. They kind of drag Rye half-conscious body with them, and he is very clearly dying. It is a very sad scene, because he's, like, I don't even want to read a section of it because it's just very sad, but Kell is basically begging Rye to stay with him, and his answers begin to get shorter and shorter, and then they stop, and Kell realizes that he cannot lose his brother. He will not lose his brother, and he takes the black stone, which is this, it's not just an article of magic, essentially. It's an article of all magic. Anything which would normally be forbidden or impossible becomes possible with the black stone. And he essentially begs the stone to give him the power to save Rye's life. And so I'm just going to read that tiny little snippet. So, save him, he ordered the stone. Power sang through his blood, and smoke poured out from under his fingers. It snaked up his arm and around Rye's ribs, turning to blackened rope as it tangled around them, tying them together, binding them. But Rye still lay there, unmoving. My life is his life, thought Kell. His life is mine. Bind it to mine and bring him back. At this point, Rye is dead, basically. Not basically. Rye is dead. At this point, Rye is dead. He has clearly crossed a line, and he is not coming back. But Kell uses this black magic, and he essentially binds their hearts and lives and fates together, and it works. It resurrects Rye. It gives them a twin scar on their chests where they are bound together. Essentially, Kell's life is now Rye's. Rye's life is not Kell's, meaning, like, as long as Kell's alive, Rye will be alive. The moment Kell dies, Rye will die. He is now sharing Kell's life. This is going to be very important. Anyway, he saves Rye. Rye is still not well. Rye is very clearly, like, out of commission for now, and the stone is very quickly poisoning Kell at this point. Using big magic like that is taking an extreme toll on Kell. But we have bigger problems right now, which is that Rye is laying there. We need to get to White London. And so once again, Kell is pushing down this realization of how much the stone is starting to infect him. And Tyrion arrives. Tyrion, as I said, is our head priest. He is a really big mentor figure for Kell. And he basically says that he will keep Rye safe. He started to become aware of what's going on in Red London with the black magic spreading. He says that Rye will be safe there at the sanctuary, and that he will lead them to an exit that will kind of keep them safe along the way. As Tyrion leads them to the exit, he comments on the fact that Lila Bard has magic. That it's latent, it obviously hasn't been fostered in any way, but that it's obviously there. And Lila's like, great, turn it on. And he's like, that's not how magic works, but, like, we'll get there. But we also have a very important moment between Lila and Tyrion alone, where Tyrion asks if Kell has noticed her eye. Because it turns out, and there's tiny little hints throughout the book, but this is the part where we really kind of get to it, Lila Bard has a fake eye. Lila Bard lost one of her eyes when she was a child, and one of her eyes is glass. And Kell has not noticed, but of course Tyrion notices everything, and she basically is like, it's none of his business. And it's not yours either, old man. We have bigger problems. And they do have bigger problems, because Kell's like, you can still change your mind, you don't need to go with me. Oh, sidebar, it's subtle, but it's suggested. But one of the most difficult things about this mission that Kell's on is that Kell is pretty sure that if he takes the stone to Black London, he will not be able to come back. It's going to be a one-way trip. The world was locked in such a way that he just doesn't know if, essentially Black London is a prison, is a cell. And he knows that he'll be able to get into Black London using the stone, but he's not sure he'll be able to get back out again. And this is one of the reasons he keeps telling Lila, like, you probably shouldn't come any further, you probably shouldn't come any further. Lila doesn't care. Lila's going to do what Lila's going to do. And so she's like, yeah, I'm still coming. So back at the palace, the possessed guard power is spreading. Again, it's a small note, but it's a small scene, but it's basically just a continuous reminder that, like, shit is going very quickly south as black magic spreads from person to person very, very quickly. At the same time, all those missing posters for Kell have turned to wanted posters. So now we know that not only are they being hunted by the Dane twins and Holland and all that bad magic, now that everyone in Red London is looking for Kell as well. Again, the day is just getting worse and worse and worse. So they make a door to White London. At least we're just going to get rid of this stone. We need to focus on the task at hand. Kel and Lila step through the door into White London. The problem is Lila steps through first, and Kel is wrenched backward by Holland. So now they are separated, and Lila is in White London alone, and Kel is in Red London, and now has to face off against Holland. So Part 12, Chapter 4, Lila is alone in White London. This is not a place she wants to be, as she determines very, very quickly. It is full of hungry people who would like to tear her apart to get at her magic, as previously established. And Lila would like to know where the fuck Kel is, because they stepped through that door together, and now she is alone. That is because we are about to discover that Kel is fighting Holland. Kel does not want to fight Holland. Kel makes this very, very clear. Holland does not really care because Holland doesn't have a choice. Holland is working for the Dane twins. He is bound to the Dane twins. He also is commenting on the fact that Kel doesn't seem to be doing so well with the black magic situation, and makes some comments about how you're either magic's master or its slave, and he is very clearly not its master, and it is taking its toll. And he's like, you should probably just give me the stone, and Kel's like, I can't. Anyway, little banter, and then they fight. And this is a very important moment because it is clear that Holland does not want to win. Holland has to fight with everything he has, but he essentially lets his guard down at the exact right moment, and he lets Kel kill him. He lets Kel drive a metal pole through his chest and through his heart. And Kel notices after he's done it that Holland let him do that. That, like, Holland did not want to fight back. Holland obviously does not want to live the life that he's living. And so he falls, and Kel does not want to leave Holland's body in Red London. It doesn't feel right. And so even though Holland is on the verge of death, Kel takes Holland's body back to White London with him. And we got to go save Lila. Well, Lila wouldn't like us to put it that way. We got to go team up with Lila. So Kel gets to Lila and is like, why did you bring that dude? I really hate that dude. He killed my friend Baron. And he's like, don't worry about it. We got bigger problems. And they do, because there are people who are just surrounding Lila trying to kill her. They fight them off, and they go to the castle to face the Dane twins. Dun, dun, dun! Part 13, The Waiting King, Chapter 1. We're actually with Athos. Athos, who is sitting on his throne with his unconscious sister on her throne. It's a pretty creepy image because her mind is still in Red London, right? Her body is here. And Athos is waiting for Kel and Lila. And he can see that they're coming because he has the other half of the black stone, and he clearly knows how to use it. And he's using it to kind of turn it into a little bit of a crystal ball moment. So he can see them coming, he sees them approaching the palace, and basically goes to handle Kel and Lila. Now, Kel and Lila split up. Seems like a good use of energy. In horror movies, don't do it. In fantasy novels, do it. So Kel finds himself face to face with Athos Dane. And we have a big bad fight. Kel has a black stone he doesn't want to use because he knows that it's going to poison him. Athos seems to have no such hesitation, and he has a black stone that he is very, very happy to use. And we can tell that this fight is going to get real dirty real fast. Meanwhile, Lila sneaks into the palace a different way and notices that the guards don't react to her because the guards have all been spelled. And she basically tells us the thing about compelling people is you have to be incredibly specific about what you want them to do because they don't have any natural inclination to help you. So they let her go, and she faces a kid named Belloc. Now, I didn't talk about him by name earlier, but remember at the very beginning of the book, when we meet Athos Dane, he's torturing somebody. He's torturing a teenage boy who didn't bow deeply enough to him when he was moving through the city. That kid is Belloc. And essentially, he has no choice but to try and stop Lila from going into the throne room. But he very, very much does not want to do this, much like Holland. Holland fought a little harder. Belloc is going to let Lila kill him. And Lila doesn't want to. This is the first time, actually, we see her actively not want to kill somebody. But it's very clear that he has been bound by Athos and that he can't step aside. And he basically asks her to kill him quickly. And she does. And she enters the throne room. Okay, so she enters. Hey, come here. Hello. Hello. Lila enters the throne room. Now we cut back to Kel, who is realizing that he is truly fucked against Athos, who is using the stone, and that he's going to have to use the stone if he wants a chance at winning this particular fight. So he does. And all of a sudden the fight gets a whole lot closer. And we're like, oh yeah. And Athos is excited too. Athos is like, yeah, it's starting now. We're going to have a good time. Okay. He obviously is having fun. Lila, meanwhile, in the throne room, after killing Belloc, finds Astrid's body, all unconscious in her chair, and she's like, guard is down. And she pulls out her flintlock pistol and tries to shoot Astrid in the head. And the problem is that Astrid, among her many amulets and things, has a protection spell on her, and that bullet ricochets, and it actually hits Lila. So now Lila is pissed and bleeding, and she's like, I'm gonna stab you in the heart for that, and she goes to do that, and Astrid wakes up. And we're like, oh shit. And before we can process that, we're gonna cut away to Athos and Kel again, and their fight. And Kel actually goads Athos into using the black stone to create something living to attack him. He's gonna create a serpent. And we're gonna remember that the last time that Lila used the Blackstone's magic to create a living thing, it immediately turned on her. And that is what's going to happen, is that Athos is going to create a big-ass serpent, and it is then going to turn around and it's going to kill him. And Kel's like, ha ha. And now Kel has both halves of the stone, and we're like, woohoo! Meanwhile, we cut back to Lila. So Kel has both halves of the stone now. Like, yes, mission accomplished. But we cut back to Lila, who is getting the actual shit kicked out of her by Astrid. It's not looking good. Lila realizes, in fact, that she's going to die. So the line is, Lila knew she was going to lose, Lila knew she was going to die, but she'd be damned if it counted for nothing. So Astrid is just having a blast killing Lila. So Lila's fighting as hard as she can, trying to make it mean something, and then before Astrid kills her, she decides to use a spell instead, and she pins Lila to the ground, and she steals her face. She, creates a mirror self on top of her. And she's like, I'm going to go see if Kel needs any help. And then she knocks Lila Ward unconscious. So we have Kel, who has just gotten a hold of the stone and is putting it back together. And it is starting to seduce him. Now, he is starting to feel very compelled by that stone. And then Lila shows up. And is like, hey, it's okay, Kel. Give me the stone. And Lila makes a mistake and uses the word please. And we are going to find out after the fact that is why Kel knows it's not Lila. So Kel realizes that Lila is Astrid and thinks about everything that Astrid has done to Rye. And that's why he kills her. He was probably going to kill her anyway, but he really goes for it. He turns her to stone and then shatters the stone. He is taking out a lot of feelings about what his brother and he have just gone through. So even though he could kill her for any number of reasons, he specifically kills her for Rye. So real Lila arrives and sees that Kel is in very bad shape, and she sees the remains of Astrid Dane on the ground, and she's like, how did you know it wasn't me? And he's like, because she said please. And we're like, huh, it's a bit of a burn. But it's not wrong. Lila, I don't think has ever said, maybe once or twice in this series she said please, but it's not common. So we do notice, though, that, Kel is screwed, and before he can get rid of the stone, it in fact drags him under. And Kel finds himself in a fight with Vitari. Remember, Vitari is the word for magic. It is essentially the thing that has been embodying everyone else that's been poisoned. It is that force. It is a person. Well, it is a god. It is a deetic entity. And Kel has to fight against himself, basically, in this way. It's that classic little inner demon thing. It's one of my personal little kinks when there's two people inside one person. Anyway, this is our two wolves moment. And Vitari tries to prevent Kel from fighting him by saying, if you kill me, then the spell that you did on Rye to save his life will be forfeit. And Kel hesitates, and then he realizes that Rye would never forgive him if he didn't stop this. And also, none of it will matter if Kel dies in this situation. And so he ends up using the word as-anase, which is to dispel magic. And essentially, it destroys Vitari. It unravels him. And after he uses that spell, all across Red London, every body that has been possessed by Vitari's magic collapses. So that thing that was spreading through Red London dies on his command. And then it's time for the final part. Holy shit. The final door. Chapter 1, Kel wakes up after fighting Vitari, and he realizes, much to his immense relief, that soul seal on his chest, that scar binding him to Rye, is still there, which means Rye is still alive. Woohoo! They then use Holland's body to send the stone back to Black London, because remember, whoever went with that stone was probably not going to get back. And so because Holland is on the verge of death, just barely clinging to life, they send the stone through to Black London on his corpse. And then they need to go home. But the question remains, will Lila be able to go? Because the question is really, was Lila able to move between worlds through some strength of her own, or was the Black Stone the only thing that was giving her the ability to move through worlds alongside Kel? We won't know until they try and step through this door. And Lila basically is like, I'll find my way in this world then if it doesn't work. We kind of get the sense at this point that Lila could find her way anywhere. But they make it. We have a little moment where we're not sure, where Kel steps through and his hand is empty and Lila isn't there, but she's right behind him. So we're like, okay, it's fine. So they're promptly arrested, taken to the royal palace where the king and queen, who are very much the king and queen again, would like to know where the hell Rye Maresh is. And they're obviously very angry at Kel, but Lila being Lila, she speaks up and she's like, hey, we're the only reason that this day is saved. We're the only reason, Kel is the only reason that Rye's alive. So maybe just like back the fuck off. And then they're just like, bring us our son. So we cut forward and we have Rye recovering in the royal palace and Kel admitting what he did to bring Rye back. This is a really important scene. There's a funny line where Rye's like, I love you, Kel, but I had no interest in matching tattoos. This is Rye just trying to really add some levity to the moment. But there's clear that a lot of trauma has happened in this scene, and also the foundation of a lot of guilt. Right? Because the thing that Rye fears most in this world is Kel causing himself pain. And now their lives are bound together in this way. And Rye really sees it all as his fault. Because remember, in the beginning of the book, Rye accepted a gift from Holland. And he knew better than to accept gifts, but it's that red amulet that allowed him to be possessed. And he admits to Kel that the reason that he accepted that amulet was because Holland told him that it was for strength. And Rye has a huge amount of insecurity about not having magic and about not being strong enough to rule one day in Red London. But he apologizes, and we also get a really lovely moment of interaction for the first time between Prince Rye and Lila Bard. And they are probably one of my favorite friendships in the series. And she said, so Delilah Bard, she said, we've met before and you looked worse, because he was possessed at the time. And Rye says, I apologize for anything I might have done. I was not myself. And she says, I apologize for shooting you in the leg. I was myself entirely. And they just have a really good reputation, a really good rapport, and I love them. And this brings us to the very last chapter of the book, where Kel and Lila part ways. And it's really nice because they each have a very different reaction to being alone at the end of the book. So I'm going to read it to you. There are two different reactions to being alone. So Kel watches... Do not do that. He's trying to get into a zippered bag. Chauncey, don't do it, man. This is an important moment. Chauncey! Okay. So Kel watches Lila walk away down the dock. And this is what he says. He would see her again. He knew he would. Magic bent the world, pulled it into shape. There were fixed points. Most of the time, those points were places, but sometimes, rarely, they were people. For someone who never stood still, Lila still felt like a pin in Kel's world, one he was sure to snag on. He didn't know what to say, so he simply said, stay out of trouble. And she flashed him a smile that said she wouldn't, of course. So that's Kel's reaction, but Lila is the person that we end on. And Lila, I'm going to read you the last page because it's Lila's. Delilah Bard was finally free. She thought of the map back in London, grey London, her old London, the parchment she'd left in the cramped little room at the top of the stairs and the stone's throw, the map to anywhere. Isn't that what she had now? Her bones sang with the promise of it. Tyrion had said there was something in her, something untended, and she didn't know what shape it would take, but she was keen to find out. Whether it was the kind of magic that ran through Kel or something different, something new, Lila knew one thing. The world was hers. The worlds were hers. And she was going to take them all. Her eyes wandered over the ships on the far side of the river, their gleaming sides and carved masts tall and sharp enough to pierce the low clouds. Flags and sails flapped in the breeze in reds and golds, but also greens and purples and blues. Boats with royal banners and boats without. Boats from other lands across other seas, from near and far, wide and away. And there, tucked between them, she saw a proud dark ship with polished sides and a silver banner and sails the color of night, a black that hinted at blue when it caught the light just so. That one, thought Lila with a smile. That one will do. So welcome to the end of the first book in this read-along. As promised, I no longer need this book, so I'm going to be giving it away to one of you. It's got my highlighter in it. It's going to come with all of my little notes that I've written along the way, and all you have to do is leave a comment, and we will choose a winner, and we will start book 2.